The Honourable Member for Calgary-Fish Creek.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is an honour and privilege to stand in the Alberta Legislature today as the elected representative for the residents of Calgary-Fish Creek, Alberta's finest community. Calgary-Fish Creek is an urban community rich in diversity, increasing number of people from other parts of Canada and the world. Many families choose to live here because of the good schools, excellent recreational facilities, and community-based programs, many of which are generously led and operated by volunteers who value their communities and families. Calgary-Fish Creek is indeed a community in all the best senses of the world, where people tend to know their neighbors and look out for each other. It is an ideal place to raise a family. The community is bisected by one of the world's largest and most beautiful urban parks, Fish Creek Park, for which our constituency bears its name. Although I suspect some members may wish to debate this, I am prepared to defend the proposition that Calgary-Fish Creek is the best constituency, in the best city, in the best province, in the best country in the world. And I am both proud and humbled to stand here today as the recently elected member of Calgary-Fish Creek, a community that I have raised my family and that has helped shape the values that I hope to reflect as its representative. Some political philosophers have defined politics as serving the public good. I would like to believe this is true. However, this aspiration does not resolve the question as to why politicians have so many different opinions and policy propositions about the same issues and challenges. Why is this the case? I recently heard an address by Marianne Chambers, a former provincial member of Parliament and cabinet minister from Ontario, and in fact, in the spirit of nonpartisanship, a Liberal, who perfectly captured my own perception when she said, "There's a tendency to think that because we mean well, we will do well. But how we define meaning well is influenced by what we understand to be true. It is influenced by what our experiences, our social circles, our work, and crucially, who do we listen to? Decision makers need to appreciate how public policy will affect different communities and individuals. We can do this through a willingness to listen to as many different voices as we can from the broadest spectrum of society. Only then can we get the full truth of the potential impact of our decisions." One of the important takeaways from these wise words is that listening reduces the probability of policy initiatives that lead to unanticipated and unintended consequences that can often outweigh any good intentions of a particular policy's proponents. However, Madam Speaker, we must also acknowledge that genuine listening might sometimes be easier said than done. And however, we are well served by listening to as many voices as possible, and I believe this is most effective if we start from a position of love, empathy, and compassion in our public discussions and make a sincere effort to listen to understand. I contrast this ideal to the perfect state of public discourse. The increased divisiveness of the tone and substance of the public debate, the echo chambers, the social media algorithms, the clear abandonment of even the pretext of objective reporting by conventional news sources, the straw manning, and the weaponization of so-called moral virtue, character assassination, and cancel culture. Some people even argue that there's no such thing as truth, a proposition that I strongly reject. Not only are there objective truths, but there are also ideas and opinions that are demonstrably better than others. And as the newly elected MLA for Calgary-Fish Creek, I will strive to listen and with respect and the intent to understand, to speak about what is important to my constituents, and to defend the rights of others to speak. As Ms. Chambers mentioned, the way we see the world is influenced by our own experiences. In my case, my experiences as resident of Calgary-Fish Creek form a large part of this. But of course, this does not fully encapsulate who I am or the perspectives, experience, and knowledge that I bring here to the legislature and the policy-making process. I would like to share some of these experiences over my life that have shaped me into who I am today. I began life in Sudbury, Ontario, the firstborn of 3 children to a hard rock miner and a Catholic school elementary teacher. My parents separated when I was very young, so I was raised primarily by a loving and supportive single mother. My mother supported our family while working through the challenge of raising a mentally handicapped daughter and upgrading her education and pay scale by completing her university degrees at nights after work. As an educator, it's not surprising that my mother was passionate about education and literacy. My memories include a home filled with hundreds of books and encyclopedias, and while money was always extremely limited, there was always seemed to be enough in the McDougall household for more books. It was here among the limitless treasure trove of reading material and frosty winter nights that my lifelong interest in geography and history was born. My father was raised in poverty, and as a child began financially to support his family at 11 years old, working nights setting bowling pins at a local bowling alley. At 16, he quit school to begin work as an underground hard rock miner. Despite his own lack of formal education, he was a voracious reader, and one of the earliest memories is him pointing to the local university as we drove by and telling me that he did not want me to follow him in his career path, but instead be the first person in our extended family to attend university. In the early 1970s, my father began looking for another career, which eventually led him to Alberta. The early 1970s were an exciting time here in Alberta, and my father believed that it was time to move from Sudbury, which at that time was a depressing place where people seemed to be more interested in getting their 20 weeks of work so they can get unemployment insurance, to a plan that was full of opportunity, optimism, and where they rewarded hard work and initiative and entrepreneurship. And there we started a small business in the construction, the trucking business. Myself, I started earning my own spending money at 11 years old when I took over a classmate's paper route. And while being active in competitive level in several sports, I always had a part-time job. Sometimes pop, chips, peanuts at the local hockey arena, or a sales clerk, sporting goods department at Eaton's. I learned how to be self-sufficient and to earn my own money and maybe help out my mom a little bit. In the summer before my last year of high school, I went out to Calgary to work for my father, and I was totally impressed. I mean, the difference in tone and attitudes and the environment was totally different, and I decided that I wanted to stay there. So I finished my last year of high school, living in a trailer park in Strathmore, where I graduated. When I was 20 years old, I declined an offer to play hockey in Germany and instead embarked on a life-changing adventure that included backpacking across Canada to New York and then to London, where I found work washing dishes in a restaurant. After being promoted to bartender and then assistant manager, I left to visit India, traveling several months throughout the country and living with different families and other international travelers. On one memorable occasion, after falling severely ill in Bombay, now Mumbai, I was taken in and cared for by a group of young Muslim students who had escaped the revolution in Iran. When I asked why they were doing this for me, they didn't even know me. I was told, because we are Muslims, and this is what Muslims do. It is during these travels that I learned many important lessons, which I hold to me this very day, including the understanding of our common humanity of peoples from all walks of life, and how fortunate I was, as a middle-class Canadian, and the connection between our good fortune and Canada's prosperity, its democratic institutions and freedoms and opportunities. I often said that me as a middle-class Canadian boy, I was a prince on the planet Earth, and I didn't even know it. This journey sparked my lifelong interest in trying to understand what were the conditions that promoted or discouraged economic prosperity and overall quality of life among different societies. And that interest manifests itself in enduring interest in economics, political science, and comparative government policy. Upon my return to Canada, I enrolled at the University of Calgary and eventually paid my way, working summers and part-time, and with the support of student loans, I completed a double major in economics and political science. It was during that time that I had a professor in my fourth year of political science for Canadian federalism, a guy named Peter Lougheed, who had just finishing his last term as Premier of Alberta, and where I learned about the Constitution of Canada and what he and other people around the table had done and what they intended to do. Afterwards, I served as executive assistant. Upon graduating, I served as executive assistant to Alberta's provincial treasurer, where I received a bird's eye view of the challenges and considerations involved in managing the province's finances and priorities in the context of the many demands of the limited resources. I'd also mention that the minister at that time was Dick Johnston, who was also the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs during the whole constitutional battle as well. So I spent 4 years listening to him talk about the conversations that took place around the table and in the back rooms on the forming of our Constitution. And those lessons with that Mr. Lougheed inform me today. After 4 years in the minister's office, I returned to school to complete a joint MBA program from the University of Western Ontario and the prestigious Instituto de Estudios Superiores de la Empresa, IESA, in Barcelona, Spain. My passion to experience and learn about the world was further cultivated when I embarked on a 10-year international career as an economist, bank executive, investment advisor to global institutional investment funds, and global oil and gas sector analyst, living in diverse locales, including Argentina, Brazil, New York, and London. During this period, I worked with 2 European major banks and the energy equity research teams with some of the world's most accomplished economists, political analysts, sector specialists, and access to top government officials, regulators, and sector suite executives, and many of the world's largest institutional investment funds. My responsibilities included energy sector privatizations, Latin America, and as Senior Vice President and Head of Country Economics and Equity Research for Brazil, and at different times, responsibilities in charge of emerging market oil and gas, US oil majors, and European oil majors. After my birth of my son, I decided to return home to Canada because I wanted him to be raised in Canada by a father that could be more present than I was in that career. And I expanded my perspective as an angel investor, founder, CEO of a variety of small technology and international marketed companies in the energy sector, which included ventures focused on innovative technology development, including hydrogen fuel trucking and reducing CO2 emissions from Alberta's SAGD oil sands projects. My companies have worked with University of Calgary faculty and graduate students on technology developments and received millions of dollars in financial support from a variety of oil and gas sector clients in Canada, the US, and other international locations. And my experience as an angel investor led to a joint appointment as entrepreneur in residence for a venture capital fund and university acceleration program in Santiago, Chile, mentoring the management teams of early-stage technology companies. One of my conclusions from that role is that we live in a hyper-competitive world. Every world jurisdiction seeks to diversify their economies and provide the conditions to generate new companies and provide jobs and future government revenues. It is not enough to try, we must be good, and we must be very good. Building new industries and companies is difficult. Global capital markets are selective, and the best ideas will only grow in the best market-friendly environments. It may be noteworthy to know that I've not only been an immigrant in various countries, but I'm the husband of a new Canadian from Argentina. My son was born in Brazil. I speak Spanish and Portuguese. We speak Spanish at home and with our broad Latino circle of new Canadians. And certainly what I've learned is that we need to do a much better job to make sure that our new Canadians are given the full opportunity to exercise their potential and their capabilities and the training that they bring here to our country. We don't do enough. I've also worked as an advocate on a variety of community and social endeavors and a deep interest in education and other community programs. I'm the son-in-law, and husband of elementary school teachers, which has given me a unique perspective on the evolution, increasing in complexities of contemporary K-12 classrooms. I've served as president, University of Calgary Students' Union, on the executive of the Canadian Federation of Students, and as a member of the UC Board of Governors. And and as a business instructor in the ex-Soviet Union. My community service includes time as a board member and a president of the committee and so just
The honourable member for Calgary-Elbow.